At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Empower.
Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
In a way, it ends where it begins.
Very insightful.
Thank you for sharing this Red Baron with us, Linda. It's so tasty, it makes me want to share something of my own. I didn't actually read the book.
Me neither.
I watched the movie last night.
I judged it by its cover.
I haven't read a book since middle school.
I'm secretly seeing 2 other book clubs.
But I can't even read.
I'm not really Gary. He just paid me to be here. Sharing Red Baron pizza can lead to more sharing.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Liverpool edge closer to the title with an easy win at Man City. A hammer blow for Arsenal as Bowen arrows in the winner for West Ham. And Crystal Palace make it 7 away wins in their last 8 with victory at Fulham. Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I am Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. And another game week has been and gone with 10 matches played, 33 goals scored, and big wins for Brentford, Spurs and Brighton. And guess what, everybody? Another game week 27, is just a matter of days away. So if you want to steal a march on your rivals, then you need to make sure you are across those all-important waivers, which need to be submitted before this week's deadline on Monday night at 6 p.m. GMT. We're going to be taking you through our top picks for this week's matches in just a bit, but before we do that, let's remind ourselves what's happened in Game Week 26 and flag a few headlines. And it all started on Friday night with the game between Leicester City and Brentford at the King Power, and this one finished Leicester 0, Brentford 4. Leicester have now gone 6 home games in a row without scoring, which is a Premier League record, and they have now lost 10 of their last 11 games. It turns out that Ruud van Nistelrooy was not the answer. Brian Mbeumo scored his 15th goal of the season for the Bees. The other 3 goals were scored by Norgard, Wissa and Carvalho. Damsgaard got 2 assists to make it 9 for the season. And Brentford have now won 4 away games in a row. We said it was a wise move to target their defence, so if you manage to get in a Nathan Collins or even an Ethan Pinnock, then well done to you. Saturday's fixtures kicked off with the lunchtime game between Everton and Manchester United. We flagged Abdoulaye Doucouré last week as a player who, once he finds the back of the net, tends to go on a bit of a run. He got 7 goals last season, 3 in the space of 5 games and 3 in the space of 6 games, and his mini run for this season is underway as well. A goal in Game Week 24 against Leicester. A red card against Liverpool meant no game in Game Week 25 for Doucouré, but he was back on Saturday and he got a goal and an assist in the draw with Manchester United. Beto kept up his good form in front of goal as well, with Bruno Fernandes and Ugarte rescuing a point for the Red Devils. Arsenal's title challenge came to an underwhelming end at the Emirates, where Jared Bowen got the only goal of the game and Miles Lewis-Skelly was sent off, and Bournemouth's great run of form also ended at home to Wolves, with Zabani sent off and Cunha getting the winner. Crystal Palace continued their incredible run of away form with a win at Fulham. Munoz got his 3rd return in 4 games, while Lacroix was in the bonus points for the 4th time in his last 6 appearances. Spurs, well, they seem to have battled back from the brink. They smashed Ipswich at Portman Road to make it 3 wins on the spin. Brennan Johnson has been in the news for allegedly coupling up with a porn star, prompting jokes about the shame the parents must feel about her dating a Tottenham player, but he brushed off those jokes and scored twice for the North Londoners. And despite scoring this week, Jed Spence did not make it a hat-trick of maximum bonus points, but he did end the game week with an 8-point return. Southampton are still on course to be one of the worst teams in Premier League history. They remain stuck on 9 points after losing 4-0 at home to Brighton. Karu Mitoma's good form continued as he scored his 4th goal in his last 6 games. João Pedro, Jack Hinchelwood and Jorginho Rutter were also on target. Aaron Ramsdale conceded 4 goals, but he also had to make 8 saves in that game. So targeting Southampton should absolutely be on your priority list for the next few weeks. And Aston Villa's new loan signings, Marcus Rashford and Marcus Asensio, combined twice to make it another defeat for Chelsea, who, despite their ropey form, we are going to be talking about a little later on. On Sunday, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest played out an absolute thriller at St James's Park. It finished 4-3 to Newcastle. Hudson-Odoi returned to the Forest team and gave them the lead before 2 from Isak, 1 from Miley and 1 from Jacob Murphy put the Toon in control. Yates and Milenkovic pulled goals back for Forest. Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White both got assists for the visitors. And then wrapping up the weekend's action at the Etihad, an Erling Haaland-less Manchester City lost 2-0 at home to Liverpool. Salah got a goal, Salah got an assist, City offered very little, and the title appears to be done and dusted, with Arne Slot's men now 11 points clear at the top of the table. So those are the matches that made up Game Week 26, but who really made us stand up and take notice of their performances, be they really good or really bad? It's time for winners and losers.
The FPL Draft Zone. Winners and losers.
And first up are our winners, and first up is Marcus Asensio, who joined Aston Villa on loan from PSG in the January transfer window. The Spaniard scored twice against Chelsea to finish the game week with a 15-point haul. He played the full 90 minutes for the first time since joining the club, and he walked away with maximum bonus points as well. Daniel Munoz deserves a shout-out after he scored his 3rd goal of the season in Crystal Palace's win over Fulham. It was his 7th attacking return of the season. He is now tied with Gabriel as the 3rd highest point-scoring defender in the whole of FPL. And Crystal Palace have now kept 5 clean sheets away from home in a row. And credit as well for Mikkel Damsgaard of Brentford, who has now got 2 goals and 9 assists for the season. Brian Mbeumo has been taking most of the plaudits for his standout season so far, but Damsgaard is having an outrageous campaign as well, and kudos to you if you manage to get him into your draft team. As for the losers, Mikel Merino was the talk of the town last week, but who knew that a hard-working midfielder would not be the long-term answer to Arsenal's attacking woes? The Gunners looked blunt in those all-important offensive areas against the Hammers, and Merino offered next to nothing in his new number 9 role. And I am afraid that all 3 of last season's promoted clubs are also on the loser list this week, as each of them conceded 4 goals apiece at home in the league this weekend. We are now at the stage where you have to look at those upcoming fixtures and target any assets who are lucky enough to be coming up against Southampton, Ipswich or Leicester. So those are a few of the standout performers from the weekend that was, alongside some players and teams who really need to up their game, but who outshone every other Premier League player on the planet with their efforts in Game Week 26. It is time to reveal our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
And this week's Hero of the Week is, of course, Mr. Alexander Isak, who scored twice for Newcastle against Nottingham Forest to make it 19 goals for the season so far. Before this one, he had gone 2 whole games without a return, but he bounced back with a 13-point haul this weekend. He has 24 attacking returns for the season. He scores with his left foot, he scores with his right foot, he scores with his head, he even scores penalties, although some of them are not that good. He is the striker we all dream of having at our club, but he is part of the Toon Army, and if he is part of your draft team, then by gum, you are one lucky manager. Alexander Isak, we salute you, you Swedish saucepot. You are our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
So, another game week is done and dusted, and another is right around the corner, with Game Week 27 kicking off on Tuesday, the 25th of February, and running through until Thursday, the 27th of February, which means that the deadline for those waivers is this Monday, the 24th of February, at 6 p.m. GMT, and that means there is next to no time to plan those new signings. But do not worry, do not panic, have no fear, because we are here to help you get your side sorted before it's too late. It is time for Waiver Once.
The FPL Draft Zone. Waiver Once.
And as usual, we're going to take a look at the game week in fixture order and make a few waiver suggestions that may well improve your team. A reminder that we are focusing on diamonds in the rough and players likely to be available in the majority of draft leagues rather than your A-list superstars. And this week, we are starting with Tuesday's fixtures, and first up, it is Brighton against Bournemouth in the Seaside Derby. Brighton actually won the reverse fixture at the Vitality earlier this season thanks to goals from João Pedro and Caro Matoma, and they've also won the last 3 at the Amex as well, where Matoma has again shone. He scored twice in a 3-1 win last season, and he also got the only goal of the game the season before that when Brighton won 1-0. So if you own Matoma, you should be in for a good week. We've already mentioned that he has 4 goals in his last 6 games as well, so he is coming into this one in great form. Having conceded 7 goals away at Nottingham Forest in Game Week 24, Brighton have followed that up with 2 clean sheets in a row, but Bournemouth have scored in each of their last 9 away games, so I cannot see the Seagulls keeping them out here. With no Zabani, I do think Brighton will score, so if there is a Rutter or a Minte still on your waivers, they may well be worth bringing in ahead of this one. 3 of Brighton's next 4 are also at home, so they could be good medium-term holds if you can get them. Bournemouth did lose this weekend, but it is hard to read too much into a game where they were down to 10 men for such a large proportion of the match. Zabani will miss this one, so the Cherries will be lacking in defensive options at the Amex. Another reason, by the way, to focus on Brighton attacking assets, but long-term, Bournemouth defenders seem to be a pretty safe pick. We've spoken at length about their good run of fixtures from now until the end of the season, really, and Saturday saw the return of James Hill. He lasted just under an hour, but if you want to root into their backline long-term, he is almost certainly free in your league. And another thing to consider on Bournemouth, by the way, Evan Nielsen was named on the bench in that defeat to Wolves, which is almost certainly going to impact Dango Utara's minutes going forward. We've spoken about how valuable Utara could have been if you could have got him in a trade for your team, but that value has diminished significantly now we know that Evan Nielsen is fit again, so I certainly wouldn't recommend going all out for him now, as he is likely to be a minutes risk sooner rather than later, despite his pretty good form. It's Crystal Palace against Aston Villa at Selhurst Park. Palace are unbeaten in their last 3 against Villa. They drew 2-2 in the league game at Villa Park earlier this season. They also knocked them out of the Carabao Cup back in October, and they thrashed them 5-0 at Selhurst Park at the back end of last season. Eberici Eze has 3 in his last 3 against Villa, as does Mateta, but as we flagged quite a lot recently, Palace are a much better side away from home than they are at home right now. In fact, they have won just 2 of 13 games at Selhurst Park so far this season, and only 1 of their last 8 and that was against Southampton. And despite their strong defensive showings on the road, they have actually only kept 2 clean sheets at home all season, way back in game weeks 5 and 9. So if you want to go for a Palace defender, I would use them sparingly when they are playing at Selhurst Park, because the evidence suggests they will not return unless it is through an attacking return. Having said all that, their next 2 games after Villa are Ipswich at home and Southampton away. So if there are ever 2 matches you might want a piece of, it is probably those. I do think Villa will score this week, though. It's just a question of which attacking assets you go for and who is available on your waivers. Asensio is now the obvious candidate after his successful week. Rashford as well. It may be that both of those are already taken. If they are, you could do a lot worse than Yuri Tielemans, who had another excellent game against Chelsea. He finished with an XGI of 0.37. He's really stepped up his game in recent weeks, including that 10-point return against Liverpool in game week 25. It's Wolves against Fulham at Molineux, and Fulham owe Wolves a little bit of revenge after they were thrashed 4-1 at Craven Cottage earlier in the season. That day saw Cunha score twice as Wolves romped to victory, and the Brazilian has 3 in his last 3 against the West Londoners. But Cunha is not alone in loving this fixture, because Alex Iwobi also has 3 goals in his last 3 games against Wolves. He got the opener in that 4-1 defeat this season, but he also scored in a 2-1 defeat at Molineux last season and in a 3-2 win for Fulham at Craven Cottage last season. So if you own either Cunha or Iwobi, you can be confident of a return based on the history of this fixture. As for this match, Wolves have only won 3 of their 13 home games so far this season, and Fulham have only lost 3 of their away games. So the signs certainly point to a Fulham victory. Emil Smith-Rowe limped off injured in Fulham's defeat to Crystal Palace and was replaced by Andreas Pereira, so he is likely to start if ESR can't, although Willian would be another option for Marco Silva. Adama Traore will be up against his old club if you want a bit of narrative action, but for me the big pick for this one is a Wolves player, and that Wolves player is Marshall Munetsi, who made his full debut in the win over Bournemouth. He got an assist in that one. He also missed an absolute sitter, but he is impressing for his new club. In 45 minutes against Liverpool at Anfield, he finished the game with an XG of 0.60, and in the game at the weekend, mainly because of that missed chance, he finished with an XG of 0.66. So he's getting in the right positions to return, and if you are getting in those positions, then it is usually just a matter of time before you do return. And after the Fulham game, Wolves have a run of fixtures that will decide their fate, with matches against Everton, Southampton, West Ham and Ipswich. So now is the time to invest in a Wolves asset, and for me, Munetsi represents the best player with the highest upside of those likely free on your waivers.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
The wrongs we must right. The fights we must win. The future we must secure together for our nation. This is what's in front of us. This determines what's next for all of us. We are Marines. We were made for this.
It's Chelsea against Southampton at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea won the reverse fixture 5-1 in December, with Sancho, Palmer, Madueke and Nkunku among the scorers, but their record against the Saints at home is not so impressive. They've won just 1 of their last 6 at the Bridge, losing their last meeting 1-0, courtesy of a James Ward-Prowse goal. Having said that, this Southampton team is looking like one of the worst teams in Premier League history. In the last 3 games alone, they have conceded 9 goals, but their goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale has also had to make 18 saves in that period as well, so it could have been a lot worse than conceding 9 goals. Chelsea are on a bad run right now, but this match surely represents a dream opportunity for them to get back to winning ways. And I genuinely think that any route into their team is a worthwhile route this week. Defence, midfield or attack. Defensively, you've got the likes of Marlo Gusto and Tosin Adarabioyo, who could be free on your waivers. They both started in that defeat to Villa, and with Chalobah limping off injured, I think their places should be secure for this one. In midfield, Enzo Fernandez played much further forward than he has been doing recently at the weekend. He did score, and he ended up with an XGI of 1.48, so he could have got another one. Neto played well as well, and will surely keep his place in the team, especially with Madueke injured. And Sancho was dropped to the bench against Villa, but I think they'll go all guns blazing against Southampton, and I would expect him to start this one as well. On Wednesday, there are 5 fixtures to look forward to. Brentford take on Everton, and the Toffees have a pretty good record against the Bees since Brentford were promoted to the top flight. They are unbeaten in their last 5, winning 3 and drawing 2. And last year they won 3-1 at the G-Tech, thanks to goals from Decore, Tarkowski and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We've already talked about Decore being a streaky player, and with games against Wolves and West Ham after Brentford, he would represent a good medium-term investment for your team. Jack Harrison showed glimpses of a return to form against United, and he got an assist in his second start in a row. And Jesper Lindstrom is a player who has yet to register a goal or an assist so far this season, but his expected goal involvement for the season is actually 4.0, so he should have been involved in 4 goals. He is very much due a return, and with Decore and Beto now finally finding their shooting boots, maybe he will be rewarded for his endeavours this week. As for Brentford, Kevin Schade did not get a return last time out against Leicester, but he is another option this week if available. Brentford have 2 games in a row coming up at home, and Ethan Pinnock played his first 90 minutes since game week 16 against Leicester. So if you think the Bees can make it 3 clean sheets in a row, he could be the man for you. Manchester United entertain Ipswich at Old Trafford. United have won just 1 of their last 6 home matches, whereas Ipswich have actually only lost 2 of their last 5 away games, and those were at the Emirates Stadium and Anfield, so they may well fancy getting a result in this one. The truth is, both these teams are really struggling for form right now, but you would have to fancy United to arrest their slide against the Tractor Boys. I certainly wouldn't bet on them keeping a clean sheet, but I do think that with the likes of Bruno Fernandes back amongst the goals, they will find a way to win this one. As for recommendations, there's no one that high on my list, to be honest, from either team, but Chido Obi Martin got another 20 minutes up front for United against Everton, and he is one of those rarities in draft called a striker. So if you are short of a striker, a home game against Ipswich may well represent a golden opportunity to give him a start and see if he can return and fill that void up front for Manchester United. It's Nottingham Forest against Arsenal at the City Ground. Arsenal actually won the reverse fixture pretty comfortably 3-0 at the Emirates earlier in the season, but Forest have not lost at home since game week 11 when they were beaten by Newcastle United, and the only other defeat they've suffered at home was against Fulham way back in game week 6, so they will definitely fancy their chances of getting a result against an Arsenal side with very limited options in attack. And given those limited options, I actually think a Nottingham Forest defender might be a solid pick this week. Arsenal cannot break down low block teams. They have no firepower whatsoever right now, and Forest have enough defensive quality to overcome any set-piece threat the Gunners might have. I think Forest will win this. I think there's a very good chance they'll keep a clean sheet as well, especially after being so leaky against Newcastle. Nuno will not have liked that, and he will want that defence to be shoring itself up this midweek. So a Nico Williams or a Morato would be a decent pickup in my opinion. Morato would be a slight gamble, but I do think he will play in this one. Ilanga is probably taken in your league, but I'd fancy him to have a field day if he targets Arsenal's left-back position. And Hudson-Odoi is another pacey player who could do some damage. He certainly did against Newcastle on Sunday. As for Arsenal, with Miles Lewis-Skelly suspended, Ricardo Calafiore should start at left-back again. But just as a warning, he has been caught out for pace quite a few times already this season, and he will struggle if Elanga or Hudson-Odoi go up against him. Ben White returned from injury in the latter stages against West Ham, and the other option is to start him at right back and switch Timber to left back, which would mean no place for Calafiori. And there are still doubts about Ethan Nwaneri's fitness after he limped off on Saturday, so if he is out, it's another chance for Raheem Sterling to deliver, if you dare to go there. Arsenal definitely need to bounce back with a win, but I cannot see it. I just don't think they have the creativity or the ruthlessness in front of goal to cause Forest problems. So I would be looking at Forest players for this one. And if you're a Martin Odegaard owner, I think now is the time to bin him off or try to get a trade over the line. His reputation and performances over the last few seasons should still see rival managers interested in him, but it is just 2 goals and 3 assists all season for the Norwegian. He has just 7.5 XGI for the campaign, which is behind the likes of Madueke, Szoboszlai, Ismaila Sarr, Savinho and Alex Iwobi. And get this, he is currently ranked 35th for big chances created in the league, level with Vitali Janelt of Brentford. Marcus Rashford has already created more, and he has missed half of the season. So I'm afraid if you own Martin Odegaard, he is just not worth keeping, even if you drafted him in an early round back on draft night. It is Spurs against Manchester City in North London, and City will not be looking forward to this one, given their recent record against Spurs. They've played each other twice already this season, and Spurs have won both fixtures. They won 4-0 at the Etihad in the league, and 2-1 in the Carabao Cup. City did win at Spurs in the league and the FA Cup last season, but they are the only wins they've had away against Tottenham in their last 8 trips to North London, with Spurs winning the other 6. You would fancy both teams to score, so I don't think defences are worth targeting unless you want a seat on the Jed Spence train. His form has been outrageous of late, and if Spurs do get a result here, there's every chance he'll be in amongst the bonus points again. After City, it's Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, and Chelsea away for Spurs. So even if there is a Danso still on the waivers, I'm not sure he's worth picking up right now. Bergvall has been playing well, but his XGI is underwhelming, so I'm not sure he's much of an FPL asset either. As for City, most of their key players will be taken. Defensively, they remain a total shambles. But if there is a Savinho around on the waivers, or even a Doku, maybe, just maybe, this is the sort of game where they will do a nice trick and actually have some end product. In a precursor to the Carabao Cup final in a couple of weeks' time, it is Liverpool against Newcastle at Anfield, and it is a game Liverpool will be hugely confident of winning, because they are unbeaten in their last 16 meetings with the Toon, home and away, and their record at Anfield is even more impressive. They are unbeaten in their last 28 matches against Newcastle, dating back to November 1995, when the Geordies won 1-0 in the League Cup. Earlier this season, it finished 3-3 at St James's Park with Isak, Gordon and Mo Salah all on target, but Newcastle are shipping a lot of goals right now, so you'd have to fancy Liverpool to score a few in this one. As usual, most of their assets will be taken, but Curtis Jones has started the last 2 now in the absence of Gakpo. He would be a lovely route into their forward line. Had a goal disallowed against City, of course, although Gakpo did come off the bench in that win. I do also like McAllister as an option when there's nothing else available from the Merseysiders, because Liverpool can sniff that league title now, and McAllister is the sort of player who loves a big game. He scored against Everton, he scored against Manchester United, he scored against Spurs, and Newcastle represent a similar calibre of opposition, so he may well be worth a punt as well. He's also across quite a lot of their set pieces. And then there is one match to wrap up the game week on Thursday, and that sees West Ham taking on Leicester. And Leicester will fancy this one based on their recent matchups with the Hammers, because they are unbeaten in their last 4, winning 3 and drawing 1. Jamie Vardy scored in a 3-1 win earlier in the campaign, and they also did the double over the Hammers in their relegation season. But having said that, whoa, take a breath. Having said that, this Leicester are rubbish, aren't they? They stink. And West Ham will be high on confidence after beating Arsenal. So avoid historical facts for this one. Avoid them. Concentrate on the form guide, which tells you that West Ham will probably make it 2 wins on the spin. Evan Ferguson is still waiting for his first start, but I reckon this is the game where he will get a chance from the off. Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Scarles, Todibo, or even Aaron Cresswell could be worth picking up this week with a view to a potential clean sheet. And James Ward-Prowse was absolutely excellent against Arsenal in his first start since returning to the club. He will be across all set pieces for the Hammers, so he's a good shout as well for this week, given the opposition. Leicester remain a hard avoid for me, but if you are some sort of sadomasochist and you do want some Foxes action, El Canouse remains their most threatening player outside of Vards. And that is it. Those are your waiver picks for this week, and hopefully you'll be able to get 1 or 2 of them over the line ahead of Game Week 27 and give yourself a chance of making it a successful week in FPL Draft. A reminder that there is next to no time to plan those waivers, so as soon as you've listened to this pod, get your team in order because the deadline to make those all-important moves is on Monday the 24th of February at 6pm GMT. The free agency deadline is at 6pm GMT on Tuesday the 25th of February, and then the game week itself starts 90 minutes later at 7:30pm GMT. Before you make those moves though, please just spare 20 seconds of your time. 20 seconds, that's all I'm asking, to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or a nice review on Spotify or whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Yes, it's that bit of the show where I'm banging on about pleading for you to give us a review. Tell your friends about us, tell your enemies, approach random people on the street and shout from the rooftops about the FPL Draft Zone, because the more eyes and ears we have on the show, predominantly ears, the more podcasts we can make for you now and in the future. We are also, of course, on social media if you do like your socials. And who doesn't like their socials? We're on X and we're on Instagram. Our handle on both is at FPL Draft Zone. And we are on Blue Sky as well, where our handle is the slightly wordy at fpldraftzone.bsky.social. But that is it for this week. Good luck ahead of Game Week 27. Good luck in the waivers. Good luck in free agency. And good luck masterminding the trade of the century with a rival manager, possibly involving the underwhelming Martin Ødegaard or the soon-to-be out-of-favour Dango Batara. And until next time, it is bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Freddie Wong from Dungeons and Daddies, and this episode is sponsored by Rocket Money.
Houston.
Houston, we have a problem, and that's too many subscriptions that I don't know about because I like to put my credit card number into sites.
Just for the sheer thrill of it.
That's the fundamental problem of the internet and money, and Rocket Money is here to solve that. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. You can see all those subscriptions that you've accrued over a lifetime of putting your credit card in on the internet in one place. And if you don't want them, just cancel them. With a few taps, Rocket Money can help with that. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/cancel subs. That's rocketmoney.com/cancel subs, not submarines.